just to talk about eyes open, inactivity, um, and going in and out, being aware of, oh, I'm aware, and judging it that I haven't been aware. And having times in my life where I've had spaciousness, what felt like connection to presence, whatever we want to call it, for more periods of the day, and then going through a period lately where I'm like, what, where, why, some judgment, some almost wanting, I've had a meditation practice for years, comfortable with it, experiences, okay, but it's like now it's like inactivity, the abiding is just so, the yearning is so strong for the abiding with my eyes open.
Yes.
And also knowing the thoughts creating this suffering around judging that it should be different,
Yes.
than it is. So it's like the chasing the tail thing. So I'd love to talk about it just in activity.
Good. Beautiful. Well, it's helpful to think of these in terms of different states, and that all the states, at least this is what I found, and that all the states are simply states, which, I mean, I've done this thing, now I'm doing this thing called Tapestry of Being. It's a kind of a way that I teach that tries to emphasize that fact, kind of put that into the foreground. Because my own sense is that whether you're in the node or in the state of transcendental divine identity where there's no I and it's just full expansion and there's no one there really, or kind of energetic presence identity where there's a feeling sense of being empowered. Maybe there is a very subtle sense of I, but it's expansion and I'm one with everything and I feel everything and not separate from anything. Those two, broad categories, there's all kinds of little sub versions of those. They're so empowering, and they feel such a relief that that then there's an attachment to those states as being like the place to be. And that, of course, that happens not when you're in those states, but when you're in like a more embodied human identity node or mode, or embodied human relationship mode, where you're actually, but see them all as states, and that in each state you could say, for want of a better word, there's a dharma or a way of being that's appropriate to them, that that meets the state. Because that's what non-dual means. Non-dual it means that you're not separate from the state that's arising. That there's not like I'm me and I need to be in the more expanded state, and look, I'm in this realm that's not, or my body mind is not in the phase that it should be, the phasing. It's not, I'm thinking and I feel separated, and oh no, how do I get back to, and this again, this whole thing about the use of deity, even in Buddhism, particularly Tibetan Buddhism, there's like teachings that talk about taking the situation as the master's instruction, as if as if Tara or Amitabha is actually putting you in this situation, or your lama or your teacher is putting you in this situation in some energetic, like not maybe literally, they didn't tell you, but life. Or if you're Hindu, you're saying Shiva is putting me in this situation, or God, or whatever.
Right.
Or you could just say life, the intelligence of life is putting me in this situation. You could say job as an individual sense of myself is not to wish I was somewhere else, but to be present to what is.
Mm.
as it is.
Mm. Mm.
And that is, now this is a tough one for, it takes a reconnoitering of the thought process, really, that this is just as important
Mm.
as a transcendental divine identity experience. Because it's just, this is just another, this is all just experience after all.
Mm.
And it's a state, and state of being embodied human. The Dharma here is, how do I react to the situation? How do I see the situation? Like, loving what is. And you may not be able to love what is, but being with what is. Even loving is a little bit too much for me. Being with what is. And why? Because it's what is.
Right.
Now, some people do little mind judo, which is, I think, is fine. Sometimes it's a little not maybe 100% accurate, but it's good as a kind of rebalancer. So people say things like, everything is happening for my good. Well, it may not actually be happening for you as an individual's good, but it's happening. So if by feeling like it's for your good, it gets you on board with what's actually happening, fine. But I mean, the real reason to be on board with what's happening is because it's actually what's happening. So,
Right. It's almost like in that moment, what does it take to quiet the
static.
mind without resisting it, but like putting your attention more on this is life, God having and wanting this experience in the moment, and therefore not resisting it. So, and having the discussion. Yeah.
Exactly. My teacher, Papaji, used to say, you should never entertain the notion that you're in any trouble.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And maybe that's how I feel, like the almost like the mean mother, like, and it comes from so many years of practice that instead of being compassionate, I'm landing with a not the Kali that comes from the compassionate saying no to the ego, but anyway, yeah.
Well, the Kali, you could say the Kali energy would be like a slap on the wrist. Stop indulging that. Look, here we are. Stop beating yourself up. Stop it. That's that's Kali. Stop beating yourself up. Move. Come on. Hey. And it's at this level, at the level of the embodied human identity, it's really a matter of reconditioning in a certain way. And if you look at traditional Buddhism, that is actually how they approached it. It's just like, look, these are patterns of mind based in ideas of yourself that are not accurate. And the traditional way is for a teacher to tell you these are ideas that are not accurate. And then you, as a dutiful Thai or Burmese or Tibetan or whatever, who everybody is Buddhist, you don't know anything, like just go back 800 years, you don't know anything else. Of course, these are the masters. All right, you're right. We as Westerners, well, I don't know that that's true. Like, how do I know that that's, but it's beautiful because if you were a meditator or you had any kind of mind altering or opening experience or pointing out instructions where you recognize, oh, now you know for yourself that this is the nature of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And yet your body and mind still are conditioned. And you could see it. It's almost like, I'm still acting that way. What? It's like my whole body is, and it's like, okay, I won't do that again. And then it just, and it does it again.
Right.
Wow. So to not judge yourself, so when you're judging yourself, to just as quickly, and the metaphor in Buddhism is Manjushri, who is the bodhisattva of wisdom. He's got a sword. And that's that sort of like, no, like, it's sort of discrimination is what it is. It's our discriminating awareness, that part that's the decider or chooser, the one that's the noticer. It's a development of that. And it's an aspect of mind, but it's an aspect of mind that we always have and that we usually use for very mundane things like knowing the difference between chocolate and vanilla. But to use it in service to freedom, to notice our mind, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're dealing with we can actually deal with content of thought, which again, I used to consider lower level teaching in Hinduism and Buddhism. Like, well, that's too much like what I learned as a Christian. I don't like content of thought. I'm not that interested in. I just want to be, there's the argument. I'm really going a lot of digressions here.
No, this is wonderful.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Good. Yeah. Excellent. In Tibet, there was an argument actually early on historically where they had representatives of one form of Buddhism and another, and they argued in front of the king about which one he was going to go with. And one of the Indian forms was the distinguishing, and the metaphor was the sky is vast. To simply abide as the sky is enough. However, there are clouds that arise in the sky, and white clouds and dark clouds, right? So the Zen teacher, or one guy whose name was Hashang Mahayana, which literally translated as Chinese Mahayana. He was a monk, and he argued, put your attention only on the sky. It doesn't matter whether there are dark clouds or white clouds. Clouds are clouds. Bad thoughts, good thoughts, dark clouds, white clouds. Put your attention on the sky. And the Indian teacher said, look, that sounds nice, and sometimes that's the case. But sometimes when you're looking at the sky, the black storm clouds burst into a storm, and the downpour is so bad that you can't look at the sky. Mm-hmm. You're just overwhelmed with the rain. Therefore, pay attention. White cloud, dark cloud, choose white cloud. By choosing white cloud, dark cloud goes away. Then white clouds and empty sky, no problem with empty sky. You can look and ignore the clouds, the white clouds. And that's the school of Buddhism that the king chose. So very good, thank you. I mean, you think he had to have it for the whole kingdom. And to tell people, oh, bad, evil, good, it's all the same, it's just the vast sky. Now, you can't rule a kingdom that way. You have to have people paying attention. But even for practitioners, eventually you realize that when those dark clouds come, it might sound good on paper that you're going to pay attention to the sky. But when it's pouring, so it's better to actually pay attention to the content of thoughts. And the content of thought, this is about skillful means, the contents of thought. The thoughts that say, oh, you can just let this go and bring your attention back to this moment. White clouds. The thoughts that say, well, what was he really thinking? Well, you just ask yourself, do I have any control over what other people think? No. Is it even rational that I should worry about what other people think? No, but I've been doing it since I've been young, and I feel like I know who I am when I'm worried about what other people think, and I've been living my life that way. Okay, well, you can hit your head against the wall as long as you want to. You have total freedom. It's not a matter of like my prior traditions, which were something like, if you think those ways, you will go to hell and God will be angry at you. It's not that. Those ways are hell. Now or maybe in the afterlife too. But it's just like how much time am I wasting? How much energy am I putting into that? How much do I scrunch up my muscles inside and my energy contract by thinking about what other people think about? It's just, as the Greeks would say, it's just not rational. You can see it's not rational. So when you see it's not rational, I think this is a really good place to talk about something you mentioned before about how it stirred. You said a word or two which brought to mind something about noticing reactive emotion and dealing with it.
Mhm.
From my own, when I work with people, and in my own life, the cutting away, immediate cutting away, for me, it is coupled always with what is happening now. Where am I now? What's happening? So let's say I have a feeling, I thought that people didn't like me. They're thinking about me in a nasty way. I have that feeling because I heard through this or that or whatever. And I had that reaction. Since I've been a child, I would think about these things, right? So what do? I go, okay, what's happening now? I'm feeling really upset because I think these people feel this way about me. So then and if I have actual time to do this, I'll just close my eyes and notice, what am I feeling? And I'm feeling sadness. I'm feeling hurt. Now, at first, maybe the mind will say, I'm feeling really pissed off at those people. And I go, well, that's a thought. That's not a feeling. I'm pissed off at those people. That's like a little storyline. What am I actually feeling? I'm actually feeling a sensation of sadness and agitation in the body. And I will ignore thoughts for now, discrimination, just ignore thoughts. Any thoughts about why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, because why is now thinking. But what am I feeling? Where is the sensation in the body of the feeling? And even a word like I'm feeling sadness or hurt, that word is a thought, and it's just a locator. Okay, thanks. Now I bring my attention I just drop attention into the feeling sense, the energetic feeling sense of the emotion, the felt sense of it, and allow attention to just merge with it, because it's what is, it's what's real. And every time when there's a thought about blah, 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 well, I can't control blah, 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 and I don't even know really about blah, blah, blah. So I just ignore blah, 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 and I just stay with the feeling sense. And boy, there's a kind of transformation that just naturally, unwilled, happens. At the very least, I'm hurt, but I don't feel as though it can destroy me. I simply am the hurt. Mm-hmm. And there's no, okay, I'm the hurt. Mm-hmm. Then I'll be like, oh, and if any thought continues to arise about, well, what are they thinking of me? Then I go, can I, in a moment, know what they're thinking of me? And even if I knew, can I do anything to stop it or change it? No, nothing. So how futile is that? And then if it brings up more feelings, I bring my attention back into the feeling sense again. But without the notion that, that I'm going to continue to go on that trail of thought. I just stay with the feeling. So I'm embodying the feeling. I'm not cutting myself off from my emotions. And so my energy that was dedicated to becoming reactive emotionally is all here. I'm not cutting myself. I'm not splitting myself. It's all here. And this has to do with, in a certain way, Tantra and the liberation of energy through direct, rather than cutting off feelings that may be obscuring, like sexual feelings or angry feelings or painful feelings, transforming them by directly penetrating them with awareness. At the same time, you're cutting off the adventure in thinking that would lead you into hitting your head against the wall again. Mm-hmm. Does this make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful.